Again, thanks everyone for joining our second meetup session. And today we have an exciting agenda. We'll talk about how to get into the cybersecurity. What are the things we need to think about if you want to switch your career in cybersecurity? And we have a wonderful speaker today. I will let Roland Kisson to introduce and then get going. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sudesh. I don't know about exciting, but I will try my best. Just a little bit about my journey. I've been in the field over 30 years. My first cloud migration was in 2007. I was responsible for moving 42 data centers for a telco into GCP, that's Google Cloud. Ran into a lot of problems, so that migration was not very smooth. I think while it wasn't smooth, I learned a lot during that migration, and again, being an early adopter for the cloud, we had quite a lot of failures, things that public cloud did not support, so we had to move to private cloud and contract Equinox, for instance, to host maybe just about 32,000 CentOS servers for us, but I'll put a pin there. My involvement with the CSA started in 2010, so I've been a member of the Cloud Security Alliance since 2010. In 2011, I was co-chair for the Worldwide Congress in Orlando. I think that's now rebranded as the Global Conference. And currently I'm part of the Zero Trust subject matter expert working group. So what you'll see on the CSA website now is a lot of focus on AI, albeit there's still a lot of work going on with regards to cloud and cloud security, cloud audit. But there is a lot of focus also on Zero Trust and how Zero Trust interacts with the cloud, and it is incorporated into the cloud. I'm part of that team that's working on the training materials and exam questions. So that's it from me. Today's agenda will be a very concise one, an overview and landscape of what was, I would say, initially involved with cloud migrations and what is now. Some mistakes, and I use the word misinformation because initially there was some degree of misunderstanding versus misinformation. But now there are a lot of, I believe, disingenuous vendors that, while there were some mistakes made in the early journey with cloud migrations, people are still trying to leverage those mistakes. Okay, so that's why I label it misinformation, what analysts are saying and where to start. So initially, most of the cloud migrations early on were labeled as lift and shift. Basically, that's where I started in 2007. Those 42 data centers, we tried to replicate exactly what was on site and put that into the cloud. That's called lifting and shifting. What's happening now is lifting and shifting has, for the most part, with very few exceptions, and I'll come to those exceptions in a little bit. And anyone, feel free to ask questions. Sudesh, Satish, if anyone wants to ask questions, it's perfectly okay. I'm okay with being not interrupted. I'm okay with people asking questions as I go along.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
So lift and shift, you would find that most organizations, especially in the US, would have already moved their data centers into the cloud. Now what they're doing is looking at different types of technologies that enable their business to be a lot more agile, okay, to be a lot more profitable, to be quicker to the market, to get that competitive advantage on all of those nice business buzzwords, okay? So this here was lift and shift data center into the cloud, okay? Back in those days, all we needed to worry about was perimeter, moving your perimeter from a hardware firewall into a cloud firewall, okay? At best, we would find some east-west traffic, and we would have to do some network segmentation and manage our traffic between those segments. Now, there's so much more to consider, okay? Now, instead of lifting and shifting, organizations are shifting left. And what does shifting left means? That's something you need to be very familiar with, okay? The traditional product life cycle, for those that have a programming background or SDLC background, they would understand that you would procure hardware, build your software, then do integration and testing. And at the end of that testing period, okay, is where you would more likely than not incorporate your security, okay? Now, programmers and developers hate this process mainly because it slows them down a lot, especially when you need to incorporate security at the end of a project during this phase here, okay? Shifting left means that everything basically happens in a rapid development life cycle, if you want to call it that. So the benefits of that, of course, is reduced time to market. But the important thing here is that when you shift left, okay, and this whole product life cycle is shortened, that means that the interaction of security into that process, and we'll come to that in a little while, okay, that whole concept, you can think of this as a waterfall life cycle model, and this as a RAD life cycle, if you want to call it that. Okay, that whole process is turned upside down. And that's where we want to speak a little bit about shifting left. And has anybody heard about DevSecOps or shifting left mentioned or brought up in any sort of cloud discussion or security discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll touch on this and understand the importance and understand why and where you can position yourself in the upcoming months or upcoming years to take advantage of this sort of, I think, I don't want to use shift again, but this sort of development within, you know, these life cycle and deployment models. Of course, serverless computing and Kubernetes, there are a lot of things to consider when it comes to cloud computing and cloud security. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you. If you go back to the previous slide, yeah, I've been in big enterprises, small enterprises, along with startups. One of the things I have observed, the comment that you made around migrating your workloads in the cloud. If you are handling a monolithic application, I think it becomes pretty hard to break that into segment and microservices. And then what I have seen, organization end up migrating their workload as is in the cloud, and then they kind of try to do backwards, you know. That's one trend I have seen. And other trend I have seen is, you're right, if somebody is building from scratch purely based on microservices, then they can adapt the structure, they can optimize security, compute, and all that stuff. But these were the two trends I have seen. And at the end, what I have seen is, because of deploying the monolithic application as is in the cloud, they kind of struggle to control the cost and compute, and they make a decision to go back to a data center.
Yes, and that's so right. Okay, those statements, because, you know, I left that organization 7 years ago, and they've decided to move away from the cloud, and reestablish a presence in local data centers, because there are a lot of things that was sold to them. Okay, and let me just move to this slide here, right? That I deem to be misinformation. Now, you can drum it up to being a miscalculation, or maybe not enough information while they were moving, and that's what I believe it was. But there are still a lot of people out there who is propagating false narratives that I believe is misinformation. This here was what we thought was going to happen, okay, back in the day in 2007. Okay, we move everything into the cloud, okay, maybe platform as a service, in some cases infrastructure as a service, and this is what we understood. Okay, we'd be managing certain parts of it. We'd be managing certain parts of it here. But if we totally outsource something, somebody else would be responsible. Okay, now I didn't think this, but this is what was being sold to executives and management. So they thought, hey, this is a no-brainer. Instead of investing all of these resources into your own data centers, into people, processes, and you name it. Okay, we might as well go to the cloud, where we abdicate responsibility to someone else. Now, this is still being propagated today, and this is totally incorrect and false. A more accurate version is this. Even with SaaS, software as a service, there is some responsibility within the organization to manage the user access and identities. So whether it's a Azure AD or an Okta or whatever else you're using, you still would have some of those responsibilities, some of those costs. The content that has everything to do with your data classification, your DLP, your content management, and everything else. And I dare say there are a few others within this particular SaaS model that the provider, they do not handle for you. So no matter where you put your organization's application, and again, this is very rudimentary. There's a lot more. There are a lot more classifications nowadays, but this is just to highlight, what and this is a personal opinion, not the opinion of my employer or any particular organization, not the CSA or my employer. This is what I've seen, okay, in the field. So moving forward, that shared responsibility model, what's good about it is, at least, with every time you see an analyst giving a recommendation or putting out a report, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But this is one of the particular models that I've seen from an analyst that I really appreciate. Okay, because what they're saying here is exactly what I'm saying here. Okay, that there's some misinformation, okay, in that the roles and responsibilities based on what model you choose varies from organization to organization and from application to application. Okay, Suresh, you mentioned workloads and containers and so on, but there's a lot more implications towards that. Some of these labels, cloud workload protection platforms, cloud security posture management, KIM, cloud identity and entitlement management. These are just some of the things that Gartner has identified in a model called CNAP, okay, which is Cloud Native and Application Protection Platforms. So moving on, this was developed and produced, CNAP capabilities, and documented by Gartner several months ago. If you ask me now, there are quite a few different changes to this, okay? A lot of what we've been seeing, like breaches, even Microsoft had a breach of a repository recently where, what do you call it? secrets were stored on public repositories. Okay, artifact scanning, for instance, is one of the things that anybody that's looking to get into cloud security needs to be familiar with. Okay, all of these different line items here, they correspond to a particular solution set. So when people think about cloud security, I'm asking for some feedback here. What do they think about? Or they think about the Microsoft certifications, the Google certifications, Amazon, Alibaba, and Oracle, whatever else is out there. What else do you all think about? Open-ended question. Anyone?
I think one of the things that comes in my mind whenever we talk about cloud is what is my responsibility and what is cloud provider's responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's one thing I can think of.
Okay. Well, let me just rewind a little bit here, Suresh. So this is what you're talking about, the shared responsibility model. What is your responsibility as a customer in red, and what is the provider's responsibility? So let's take that, drill that down one more level. Okay, when we speak about CNAP, what we're speaking about are all of these features that you, Sudesh, and team are responsible for. Everything here, the provider is not responsible for. Okay, so let's just put that into perspective. Okay, how that actually looks. Okay, now this here goes into the shifting left. Okay, and the divide between what we spoke about here and here. Okay, the before and the after, or what I call misinformation. All right, maybe I need to fix this adjective to be something that isn't associated with politics, but misinformation is the one thing that I think it is. Okay, so all of these particular solutions here, cloud workload protection, posture management, entitled management, okay, web application management, none of these things are actually done, okay, or even if they're done, they're not done properly by the cloud providers. So this is where the next step in developing cloud security skills comes in, if that makes any sense. So that's the relationship I was trying to bring. Okay, and just to articulate on this call, there is a huge gap in security skills for this CNAP portfolio. Okay, and Forrester, the reason for putting this here, you're going to see a lot of vendors, is that what's very notable here is that you're not seeing an Amazon, a Microsoft, or a Google, an Alibaba, or anyone else on Oracle here. Okay, this CNAP portfolio and all of these solutions to be able to address these particular gaps, they're only done at this point in time by third-party vendors. Okay, forgive me for having Palo Alto highlighted here. Okay, this report, Forrester Radar report, costs like $5,000 US. The only way for me to get this diagram was to sign up with a particular vendor, so that's why it's highlighted there. If I had signed up with CrowdStrike, you would see CrowdStrike highlighted. So it's not a matter of me trying to pitch Palo Alto, just to be clear. So these are the particular solutions that fill that CNAP gap. And they have all of these particular solutions here, from posture management, cloud entitlement, what do you call it? Identity and entitle management, infrastructure as a code scanning, and everything that comes along with shifting security left. I hope that makes some sense, and part of the story that I'm trying to tell here is coming together. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you invest your time and resources into the AWS, the Googles, the Microsoft Azure certifications, you're not going to even start to comprehend and touch the CNAP capabilities. Does that resonate at all? Or are people familiar with that? Or is it the first time you're hearing something like this? I don't want to do all of the talking, Suresh. Just wanted to get some feedback.
Anybody?
Yeah, I also heard about this in the past, but the people in the call, feel free to chime in if you have any questions, if you need any clarity. It's open forum.
Okay, so what we're here for is, where do you start if you have not yet started your journey into cloud security or understanding the cloud? Okay, so if you're starting from the bottom, okay, the Cloud Security Alliance has done a great job. They've been at it since 2008, 2009, trying to have some vendor agnostic training to get you started off in the right direction. The certificate of security knowledge gives an overall overlay of how to secure cloud from a foundation level. There's an auditor certificate and some general certifications and training that deals with microservices and containers and almost every little bit and piece of emergent cloud technology. You need to build some labs. If you sign up for an AWS account, Azure account, GCP account, you're going to be able to work with all of these cloud instances and providers at no cost. The caveat is that you need to manage that. And when I say you need to manage it, is when I first started using these cloud providers, I had like 25 instances of Azure and maybe 20 of AWS. GCP, I was very comfortable with having, migrated 42 data centers. So I started off with these on a monthly basis. My bill on my credit card would be like $1 or $2. And as long as you don't cross a particular threshold in terms of memory and processor, hard drive utilization, it could be as low as $0. So you have that ability to service providers. After that, then you decide where you want to go, because there's some organizations that have most of their cloud presence in one cloud provider. Some of them have it in multiple cloud providers. What I've seen out there in the industry is that AWS has a lot of the I'm trying to choose the correct words here. Some of the largest customers, followed by Microsoft. Microsoft has a lot more enterprise customers, followed by Google. So if you're looking to invest your time, it's not that I'm endorsing anyone. You just choose one or two that makes sense. Okay. What I would also advise is that you look at, oops, what is this? Yeah. What I also advise is you look at cloud related vacancies. So you see what people are asking for. You would find that more likely than not, okay, it's these top 4 and they ask for one or the other. Okay. And after doing that, then you try to specialize in one or two CNAP capabilities. Most, if not every organization needs a cloud security posture management. Basically what posture management does is that it gives, exactly as the name implies, an overall view of compliance, misconfigurations, recommendations, and so on. And almost every third-party cloud provider has that. There's ISC scanning, for instance, that's very popular right now. So you can download some of them and scan your own Git, whether that be GitHub, GitLab, and whatever. And when you're comfortable with that, you move on to some of the more advanced, cloud related technologies like Kubernetes and so on. So that's it from me. I'll open up for any questions. I hope this was useful.
Thank you so much, Roland. Any questions for Roland?
I do have one, if I can go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Roland, for your time. This was really helpful. So I'm trying to get into cybersecurity data science roles, data analytics in cybersecurity, specifically applying machine learning and artificial intelligence on cybersecurity data. I've had exposure to the NetFlow data and some of the CVEs you mentioned as a part of the CNAP platform, the vulnerability database, etc., how to scan for them, do the penetration testing, etc. But if I were to extend my skill set in terms of applying these skills and working with cloud, what kind of training or what would you recommend focusing on? My focus, my knowledge level from a cloud is primarily with a background of building data pipelines, not looking at the security aspect of it, but looking at like what databases, which server instances, and access aspect of it. But if I were to focus on the analytics, so which area can I pick for it from a training perspective?
Okay, so this is just a personal opinion here. You mentioned two things.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned your experience with CI/CD. Okay, that naturally aligns with DevSecOps.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that's happening out there with CI/CD pipeline and DevSecOps, especially when it comes to shift left. Okay, anything to do with ISC scanning, for instance, it's a huge deal, and very few people understand it, which can be great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for you, it can be great because very few people understand it. Okay, what you find is that people who came through a different path, such as network security, they have it's not impossible for them to catch up, but you are going to have an advantage over them because you understand that already. Okay. Mm-hmm. The network security, the firewall security, and the traditional security folk, okay, you are going to have that advantage. So that's where I would focus my effort. Okay. And like one of the slides showed with the shifting left, everybody's doing that. Okay. So you already have a head start there, Yaminish.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ronald. I think that helps me define my focus areas.
Yeah, don't try to compete with everyone that's wanting to do penetration testing and all of these other things. You're going to be wasting your time there, in my opinion.
Yeah,
okay?
that's been my problem so far. Like if I were trying to focus on one certain aspect and use the internet as reference, I end up developing a wider little understanding of a lot of things, but I'm unable to get into deeper things because as you explore a certain area, you kind of realize that, oh, there is more in terms of connected areas that you have to gain knowledge on. But what that stops us from doing is getting deeper into a certain area and focus and become an expert is in one. So that's been a little challenging. So because there's just so much talk, when especially you're basing your learning plans out of the internet, there's just so much of width of knowledge available. So it's hard to focus and find the right area for yourself.
Yeah,
But yeah.
if I were just throwing out some advice to you here, which I am,
Mhm.
okay, focus on ISC scanning. There are lots, all of those vendors I showed on that circular radar,
Mhm.
each one of them have an ISC scanning tool, and they're trying to take the traditional security person, which is network security and penetration testing, and shoehorn them into understanding repositories and code and all of
Mhm.
these different things. You're going to be able to come up to speed a lot quicker than they are.
Okay. Mhm. Yeah, that is really helpful. Yeah, thanks for that advice. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to what Roland was saying, Yamnish, since you mentioned you are familiar with NetFlow, you are familiar with some of the concept.
Mhm.
One of the things you can explore is there is something called as threat intelligence. So threat intelligence. So there are a lot of open source threat intelligence available. So one of the thing you can look into is called as Cisco Talus.
Can you say that again? Sorry, Suresh.
Sure, Cisco Talus, TALOS. Yeah.
Dallas. Okay.
Yeah. So as a part of your learning, what you can do, get all your NetFlow data
Mhm.
and take the data coming from Cisco Talus
Mhm.
and use your data science algorithm data models and see how you can identify anomalies,
Right. Mhm.
right? So I would say start with that, and then slowly you can start with one feed, second feed, third feed, fourth feed. There are like hundreds and hundreds available free. It's a public,
Got it. Mhm.
and then you can take it to the next level, and then you can build on the top of that. I would say start. That is another way you can look into.
Mhm. Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks a lot for that, Suresh. Yeah, I think really something for me to take away from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Amish, for question, and Roland for the session. So next we have a small plan. I mean, we have a Q&A session, and feel free to chime in if you have any questions regarding switching the career or how to develop your career in security. So next session is about Q&A. I have few questions. I would like Sudesh to answer these questions. As you all know, Sudesh, he is the founder of this chapter. Apart from that, he holds multiple PhDs. He has played multiple leadership roles in many companies. So I think he answering this would really make help everybody to switch career or move in the right direction. So some of the questions I have are, what are the typical career paths within this industry?
Yeah, that's a very good question. See, if you are a developer, if you are an infrastructure engineer, if you are even a DevOps engineer, it is very easy for you to switch your career into security because you already have a good wealth of background, right? That's one point. And second thing is, what is happening nowadays is if people want to jump into security, they're kind of, okay, let me take this crash course, let me learn about penetration testing, let me learn about hacking and all that, and they're kind of get into that. But as you look at your career, this will not help you long run, right? So my recommendation will be start with learning about core concepts of security. You can start with, there is a training called as Sec Plus. Not sure how many of you know. You can start with that. You can utilize the various resources in OWASP. You can utilize various resources in CSA. And if you are jumping into security career from scratch, I would say start with a junior role. I think it's okay to take a step back, shadow with somebody, have a mentor behind you, have like a buddy behind you, or even you can reach out to us. We can happy to help. But I would say start with that. Do not jump the guns. Don't get into, oh, I learned penetration testing. I learned this, I learned that. As I said, it will help you from the short-term gain perspective. But as you try to thrive in your career, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, that will not give you the depth of knowledge. That's what I would say, my 2 cents. You're on mute, Satish.
Okay. Anybody has any counter questions or shall I go to the next one? Okay, let me go to the next one. Please be open and free to talk. Just think this as a discussion. We are a couple of folks from Infosec helping you all. So feel free to chime in. So the next question I have is, what skills and qualifications are highly valued in this field?
That's a very good question. See, I will tell you one thing. There is a misperception around, oh, you know what, I need to have 5 security certificates. I need to have this bunch of cloud certificates, bunch of this, bunch of that. I would say you don't really need that. At the end of the day, your knowledge is what matters. As I said earlier, start with the foundation, learn about concepts in security. What is meant by, for example, what is meant by vulnerability? What is meant by exposure? What is meant by, let's say, in encryption terminologies? What is meant by hashing? What is meant by encryption? What is meant by encoding? Start with those very basic terminologies. And then based on that, you can build your career. Okay, let me see what meant by hashing. Okay, now let me look into what is meant by weak hash, what is meant by strong hash, how does it work? And now this is like more on the offense side. Now from the defense side, if somebody is trying to compromise one of your hash that you are using, let's say, in one of your application, now how can I break in? There are various utilities available. So I would say work this in hand, both offense and defense. So then you can start building your career. So I think any bachelor's or any background, I wouldn't think that is a prerequisite. As long as you have passion to learn, as long as you have a right path, that's what it matters. That's my take on it.
Awesome. Next is very interesting. I think this is, I have no experience, but most of the job postings, they ask experience. Now, how do I get into security industry?
Yeah, that's sometimes tough. There are 2 ways we can look into. One way is maybe you can take some of the certification programs that are offered in the universities. They have something called as, take like 6 months program in cybersecurity, 1 year program in cybersecurity. That will be counted as your knowledge gain and experience too. And then most of the time in the career fairs, they look for fresh grads. They look for people with some background. They look for people with some experience in cybersecurity. That is one avenue you can explore. The second avenue is look for your contacts. Like this is one of the forum where you can get the contacts, you can meet people, and maybe there are opportunity you can get around summer internship. That's another way you can get into the cybersecurity. These are the 2 ways I can think of.
For analytics in cybersecurity, and those are the roles I want to focus on. So I'm just trying to, like you said, trying to reach out to as many people as possible and see, what advice they have, what path should I take for that. So
I think you have a good background. I mean, whenever you present your profile or any opportunities that comes on your way, I would say present like in a consolidated manner. Do not say, oh, I was an infrastructure engineer here, but now I did my master's or bachelor, and now I'm doing this.
Mhm.
So the way people get impression is, oh, maybe 10 years, the person was infrastructure engineer and now joining as a new,
Mhm.
may not be able to get to ramp up pretty fast.
Right. Mhm.
So the way you can present your profile is, okay, along with infrastructure engineer responsibility, I was doing patching, vulnerability management, risk analysis, use these terminologies
Mhm.
and put less emphasis on um, putting all the infrastructure skill sets like
Right.
Apache, Tomcat, this and that.
Mhm.
Then it will give whoever is reviewing your profile, it will give them an impression that, okay, the person does work in cybersecurity along with infrastructure role. And
Mhm.
maybe the person want to completely transition into information security.
Mhm.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'll use those inputs, couple of them. So I'm right now in the exploration process. Every couple of weeks, I change my strategy. So I'll try this and see how that goes. Thanks for that.
There are no questions. I'll move on to the last part. So usually, before that, I just want to share vision of CSA-SFO. So we are the vision of CSA-SFO chapter is to give back to the community and help individuals grow by providing training and guidance on the current industry trends. We believe the power of knowledge sharing, collaboration to uplift the professionals in this field. So we have various multiple programs lined up. So we want everybody's involvement in this. So in this regard, usually what we do for next chapter meet, we ask whoever have attended, what is that they want to learn. And so based on that, we'll bring in the speaker, or we would be happy if somebody volunteers to speak. So I'll just share my screen. So let's discuss for next chapter meet when we want to have, and then what topics would interest you. So I hope everybody is able to see my screen. So actually, this talk was proposed by previously, I think Bhuvaneshwari. She's there. So she proposed this talk. Hence, we did this. We started looking for speakers. Luckily, we found Roland. So that's how this happened. So this is what we typically do. We want to understand what are your concerns and then plan our talks accordingly. So if anybody, so next, I think it would be the month of June. Either it will be 22nd or 29th. Usually Thursdays we do. So please be
sure.
part of
Thank
this. You will get all the latest information, and whatever we discuss over here, all the presentations, we'll try to communicate via LinkedIn, and then we'll try to post it in YouTube or other media. Thanks then. If nothing is there.
Thanks everyone. Have a good weekend and stay safe.